I'm in for it tonight. Archives of all shows can be accessed only at VyzygothsGrassyKnoll.org. And I'm not going to spell that for you, but just do a search on it on Google. You'll get it. You can access recent shows through radio4all.net, and that's the numeral 4 in there, radio4all.net. You can also listen to past Grassy Knoll shows and other alternative programming on Live 365. Go to pascoradio.org and check out the schedule. Now, I'm not sure that we're streaming, and we'll have a little explanation about what's going on here at the studio because there are technical difficulties. We may be streaming on pascoradio.org. You'll just have to check that out. There'll be no instant messaging on AOL. That's also been struck from us. And lastly, the views expressed on the Grassy Knoll are not necessarily those of the management, staff, or advertisers of WDCF, WZHR, and the Tan Talk Network. And now I must tell you, those of you who may be listening, because we were to have on Terry Schiavo's lawyer, Pat Anderson, and father, Bob Schindler. And, of course, most people in Florida and many in the United States and internationally are aware of who Terry Schiavo is. She's being kept, well, you know, this is the gnarly problem. Is she being kept alive on life support, or is she not? And this is one of the struggles that are taking place in this very Solomon-esque problem. But anyway, what happened was it wasn't on their end that they could not be here. I should say could not be phone interviewees because we took a lightning strike at the station. It knocked out the telos, which means that phone interviews, which we do many of on the Grassy Knoll, was not possible. And we don't know when it will be restored, but at this moment we cannot have that interview with Pat Anderson and Bob Schindler. They will come back. They're very willing, and it is some kind of story. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what's taking place with regard to the 9/11 Commission and what a whitewashed piece of garbage that is. Before we get to that, though, I tell you what, Thought Criminal, because you're involved,
yes,
and so is your beloved in the school education system, I'm going to read you something. I want you to concentrate.
Oh, okay.
And tell me what's wrong with this program, okay? This is in the Tampa Tribune. Lido High School students find it pays to learn.
Ah, yes.
Have you heard this one?
No.
All right. 50 students at Lido High School are about to be paid $150 for spending 36 hours in a remedial reading class. The 3-week course is to prepare them to retake the Florida Comprehensive Assessment Test on Tuesday, better known as the FCAT.
Mm-hmm.
The money comes from taxpayers, what a surprise, through a federal grant, and students get it whether they pass the FCAT or not. Quote, our kids work sometimes 30 or 40 hours a week, unquote, says Michelle Loango, the intervention specialist at Lido who came up with the idea. Mm-hmm. What a brainiac. Their jobs take precedence sometimes over their education. We thought if we pay them $150 for 3 weeks, that's another paycheck. The stipend is something they can understand, she says. About 70 students are in the class, but some won't have to put in the full 36 hours to be paid. So let me get this straight. Kids fail the FCAT.
Yep.
They go to summer school.
Yep.
They don't have to pass the FCAT.
No.
And they're making about $4.17 an hour to jerk around and not have to pass the FCAT.
That would be about the size of it, yes.
Isn't there a little something wrong about counter-inducement here?
No. When you look at the public education system today, the public schmools, mm-hmm. you immediately realize that everything, from the administrators right down to the rank and file, is dumbed down, and all instruction is done on as elementary a level as possible.
Now, this is starting a precedent, and I'm not going to, we have other fish to fry here, but what struck me was that
paying students to do what they are supposed to master during the school year. A simple declarative sentence is required for the writing portion of FCAT.
What? Go ahead.
A simple mastery of basic mathematics is required to pass the math portion of FCAT. Yeah. A simple command of English is required to pass the reading portion of FCAT.
Let me interject something, if I may. Besides the FCAT and its merits, they're paying kids to go and sit in the classroom and basically not do anything. Now, here's my point. Would you rather get $4.17 an hour sitting in a classroom, perhaps sleeping or whatever, and maybe you really can pass the FCAT and you do anyway, or would you rather make, say, $5 an hour landscaping in the hot, blistering sun?
I think I would rather sit in the cool, air-conditioned comfort of one of Ledo or Hillsborough County's finer schools.
And one other connection down the road, and we've spoken about this on the show before, about where education is going in the United States as part of a global curriculum, which is in the Marxist planks of the Communist Manifesto, about corporations coming in and maybe paying, offering salaries to students. And all you have to do is plug your butt into their system when you get out of school. This is school to work, and that is right out of the manifesto of the Communist Party.
Well, they have been working at this steadily for the preceding 40 years.
Yep.
And there have been parent groups that have complained. A whole movement of homeschooled children has been developed in response to this. And if you notice, in national competitions like spelling bees and writing competitions, many times the homeschooled student is head and shoulders above his public school peers.
I've been in the school system. They're always head and shoulders above.
Well, I'm not given to making wild, inflammatory statements, as you well know.
Are you saying that I am?
No, I would never say that.
All right. Well, anyway, we'll wrap it up and say that this, I think, is a precedent-breaking situation, which is not necessarily
here
good.
to save the show.
I hate you. I cannot tell you how much I hate you.
I got. You're not going to believe this. This is true.
All right, go ahead.
Oh.
Actually, trying to pull out onto 52 every redneck. It's 5 o'clock, and I couldn't get the stream. The stream is running, by the way.
Oh, excellent.
But I had a heck of a time getting it started for some reason or other. So that's.
You can sit down and stay a while.
I'm gonna,
Oh, yeah, I know. Okay, all right.
by the way, you should probably tell people, since we are a worldwide function here,
Right.
what FCAT is, because
He did. We just said it. I read it in the article. What FCAT
well, you guys
stands
were
for.
talking about it. And the word is Lato, by the way. How long
I
have
like
you lived
Lido.
here? You've lived here long enough to know it's Lato High School.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't catch
All
that. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was doing a little Boz Skaggs on that, all right? Now, for first-time listeners who may be shocked by what we were going to talk about, and we can document it, folks, most of you labor under two presumptions. One is that the government is your advocate. It makes believe it is, but it's really about control. Two, mainstream news, whether print or electronic, is not telling you the truth, and it hasn't for probably a century. And three, if we can add this in, that if you're going to say what information on the internet is wacko, just remember this. The news, mainstream, and internet fall under the same scrutiny. In other words, if you were going to read something from the National Enquirer, you wouldn't necessarily want to use that as the gospel, but you might for the, Washington Post and New York Times, except both of them are liars. Same thing on the internet. Most of the damning information against the government is on their own websites. And what we're going to state to you now is this. The 9/11 Commission is garbage. It tells you people what you want to hear, or what you should hear, or what you should believe. 9/11 was a Pearl Harbor. And if you ever read Robert Stennett's book, Day of Deception, he is Navy 42 to 46, and he knew something stank, and the fact was that Roosevelt did know. It shouldn't be any different than we had at the end of the 19th century when we sank our own battleship, the Maine, to start the Spanish-American War.
That was an accident.
Yeah, right. It always implodes from the inside.
Well, stranger things have happened.
I'm just glad that Lyndon Johnson told us the truth about the Gulf of Tonkin and the Turner, Joy, and Maddox.
Exactly. Now, we're saying that 9/11 was not only known about by our government, but abetted. And if I could, let me just briefly refer to the document called Operation Northwoods, which was drafted in 1960, where the Joint Chiefs of Staff thought about these things. A use of a MiG-type aircraft by U.S. pilots, and I'm reading right from the declassified document, could provide additional provocation. Harassment of civil air, attacks on surface shipping, and destruction of U.S. military drone aircraft by MiG-type planes could be useful as complementary actions flown by U.S. pilots. Moving along, another point. It is possible to create an incident which will demonstrate convincingly that a Cuban aircraft has attacked and shot down a chartered civil airline en route from the United States to the islands, whether it's Jamaica, Guatemala, Panama, Venezuela.
A plane load of college students, perhaps.
That's right.
On vacation.
On vacation.
The destination would be chosen only to cause the flight plan route to cross Cuba. The passengers could be a group of college students, excellent, off on a holiday, or any grouping of persons with a common interest in supporting chartering a non-scheduled flight. In other words, those people are going to be killed. Okay, this is 1960. The mentality was there. Let's see. Lastly, an aircraft.
You have to break a few eggs to make the omelet, you know.
Yeah,
You just don't want to be related to one of those
said
eggs.
That first.
Who?
You guys keep quoting all these great communists and.
You use it all the time. Who you?
No, that's a dingus that uses it all the time. That's why I use it. You know, our Mr. Long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The marksman.
Yeah.
Who did do it?
Another Stalin. Another Joe Stalin.
Is that another one of his?
Yeah. No, just it's right up there with political correctness.
Is this Papa Joe who offed how many?
Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe,
yes.
Joe, okay.
He gazed into Roosevelt's soul, just like G.W. gazed into Vladimir's soul, into his eyes.
That
He said that.
Yeah.
I know, but it's, I mean, you know, what they
I
love
mean,
is-
do I gaze into your eyes and say, you know, I looked into the
No,
business soul?
No.
Yeah.
You have very pretty eyes.
All right. So anyway, we have a mindset in Operation Northwoods going back to 1960 in which our military was willing to sacrifice a number of citizens to provoke an incident, well, it would be the provocating incident with Cuba to start something.
And rightfully so, like we should probably interject that the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States flatly rejected that notion, which probably is another nail in the coffin, so to speak.
Yes, and caused his early egress from this planet.
Right.
Now, we know this 9/11 Commission came out, and I'm taking this from NBC, and I'm going to use this as a point-by-point. You guys can jump in wherever you want to, but there's a number of things that are going on that don't make sense. As they came out with this, they said there's problems on multiple fronts. In a staff report released Thursday, the Commission said efforts to respond to the 4 hijackings that day were plagued on multiple fronts. The examples cited include these. The military never received more than 9 minutes' notice from the Federal Aviation Administration on any of the 4 hijackings. That is complete garbage. Now, the reason why, you guys stay with me.
Sure.
Let's just take an overview of the timeline on September 11th. On 8:20 a.m., Flight 11 stops transmitting. We might have a problem. At 8:38, Boston Air Traffic Center notifies NORAD that American Airlines Flight 11 has been hijacked. Now that's 8:38, okay? When it hits the World Trade Center, it's 8:46. You know, it's tight, but okay. Now, at 8:43, the FAA notifies NORAD that Flight 175 has been hijacked. All right? Now, that Flight 175 strikes the World Trade Center at 9:02. That's plenty of time, much more than 9 minutes. Okay, now, do you think we have a problem with 2 that have already been flown into the World Trade Center? I would think so. So at 8:55, Flight 77 begins a U-turn over southeastern Ohio. You know this is going to be trouble, okay? At 9:02, as we said, 175 strikes the World Trade Center. Okay, now what do we do about Flight 93? At 9:16, the FAA notifies NORAD that Flight 93 may have been hijacked. That is more than ample enough time when you figure that 93 would either crash either at 10:02 or 10:15. In other words, almost an hour after the notification. What are we talking about here?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lie. Anybody want to jump in?
I would prefer to think of it as a cover-up. You know,
there's a
they're
difference?
hoping people aren't going to figure it out.
All right, second point. There was a delay in passing along an order for pilots to shoot down any hostile aircraft. All right, maybe. Some will say that it's been in place ever since '60 with the problem with Cuba.
And that brings up something, too, I want to address yesterday, is that we've got 2 types of people. People complaining that the people died needlessly in the World Trade Center because of the lack of rapid response from the United States government to protect. But at the same token, they're willing to accept these planes being shot down with the passengers inside of them in order to keep them from hitting the World Trade Center. And I'm thinking, You know,
you
the
can't have
same
it both
people are
ways.
upset because you didn't shoot that plane down and kill everybody else in that, you know.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
The ability to hold two.
We like cognitive dissonance.
Yes,
We work with CD right here.
Uh-huh.
You're listening to the Grassy Knoll on AM 1350 WDCR. We're going to talk about the 9/11 Commission and what a crock of crap that is.
You know the Van Ortner doesn't work, right?
The what?
The Van Ortner.
Would you enlighten me as to what that is?
You probably can't. You can't take telephone calls and bring them on the air.
Yeah.
The device that does that is called a Van Ortner.
Well, all right.
Oh.
All right.
Larry knew that.
You did? No.
That's the official name, the Van Ortner.
Van Ortner, that sounds like, I don't know, a make-believe country or something. We're talking about the 9/11 Commission, and they tell you what they want you to know. And we were talking about 2 points, that the military never received more than 9 minutes' notice. That's false. That there was a delay in passing along an order for pilots to shoot down any hostile aircraft. And the thing is true. And it's like what Harry said. I mean, what are you going to do with 2 planes flying over one of the largest metropolitan areas in the world? You're going to shoot it down? It's going to hit something. So really, what could it do if it couldn't get it over a rural area?
Well, in consideration of response time, if you recall that Learjet
hoax.
Yeah,
with the golfer,
course, right down here.
They were on him like within 5 or 6 minutes.
That's because he was a famous golfer.
Oh.
All right, I'll tell you what it was. Hold on a second. Payne Stewart. All right, here we go. Payne Stewart. All right. At 9:33 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Changed radio frequencies and contacted Jacksonville controller. The controller received no response from the plane. The controller called the flight 5 more times over the next 4.5 minutes. Now it's 9:38, and it started at 9:33, but received no response. At about 9:52, an F-16 test pilot from Eglin Air Force Base was vectored into within 8 nautical miles of Payne Stewart's plane. This means 14 minutes between assessment of the problem to not only scrambling but interception.
So keep in mind, too, in all fairness, he was heading that way.
Yes,
so,
you're right. He did come off.
You know,
yeah, I should not say scramble because he was probably in the air.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it worked. The whole system worked because that's what they were about.
It worked.
So supposedly on 9/11, everybody was having lunch. All right. All right, now, the thing is, on the third point, the first call from the FAA to the military for help prompted a question, is this a real world or exercise? Now, that's very important, is it not, Harry?
Yes.
Because what do we know took place that day?
An exercise.
NORAD.
Not only 1, 2, and perhaps more. And let me cite this for you in case you want to look it up.
Coincidence, though, that don't you think that they'd have those exercises the same day?
On the same day?
I'll
right.
tell you, those Arabs are some smart guys because they had access to all that information.
And they knew exactly they were running, on that day.
I believe that.
Sure, absolutely.
This is from International Citizens Inquiry into 9/11. And you can get there to www.911inquiry.org. And here we go. On September 11, 2001, the Air Force was in its second day of annual war game drills titled Vigilant Guardian, designed to test national air response systems, which incidentally involved hijacking scenarios. In addition, the National Reconnaissance Office, the NRO, which is staffed by military and CIA personnel, and is in charge of most American spy satellites, was running a drill for the scenario of an errant aircraft crashing into its headquarters. NRO headquarters also happens to be located just 4 miles from Washington's Dulles Airport, where Flight 77 originated. Lastly, for example, we know that Lieutenant Colonel Dawn Deskins, Regional Mission Crew Chief for the Vigilant Guardian exercise, said that everyone at the Northeast Air Defense Sector, which is called NEADS, part of NORAD, initially thought the first call she received about the 9/11 hijackings was part of the war game scenario.
And actually, there's some...
Yeah,
you know, these guys were sucked into the vortex too. In other words, the players, the people who,
sure,
you know,
before you launch the full-scale bells and whistles pony show, you want to know, is it really real or is it just another exercise?
Well, that's it. The only reason that all these people could have stood down was that they thought it was an exercise and no reason to get exorcised. Okay?
Absolutely.
Now, in addition, yet another drill entitled Northern Vigilance was running on 9/11, simulating an air attack coming from Russia. So the question is just how many war games were running on September 11, 2001. Now,
why would we simulate an air attack from Russia since they're our friends? Am I right?
yeah,
I guess
this is the same President Bush and
Putin.
Putin. Look at his eyes, yeah.
Putin, yeah.
I guess others didn't look into.
Maybe the military still thinks there's a possibility of an air attack.
Into his eyes or something.
Listen, you shake hands with them over the table, but you keep the gun between your legs.
That's right.
It says the NRO is effectively the eyes of the world. With a majority of American spy satellites at its fingertips, it can reasonably be assumed that NRO headquarters was an indispensable resource to NORAD and the Air Force from 8:28, when Flight 11 made its unplanned 100-degree turn over Pennsylvania, until 9:38, when it is said to have struck the Pentagon, and we know that it didn't. The NRO claims as soon as the real-world events began to unfold, supposedly the drill was called off and all but the most essential personnel were sent home. Why was the NRO sending home personnel during what was likely the biggest military crisis on American soil in recent history? And you can and of course, if you send everybody home but the most essential, it means they ain't talking. So we had NORAD exercises taking place on 9/11, and that's probably the reason that all the Air Guard did not respond to these planes. And we have a lot of units in that area between Boston and Norfolk that could have responded. Norfolk was your least likely responsive center. All right, now another one. You're going to love this one. It's good to know this, okay? One plane moved into a gap in the FAA administration radio coverage. There's a gap. I'm sorry, not radio. Radar coverage.
Radar coverage.
We have a gap, a Bermuda Triangle, a black hole somewhere in the United States that can't be seen by radar. Isn't that comforting?
It's possible, but not. Well, it's possible with weather radar, so it might be possible. But the gap is so small that it's in other words,
inconsequential.
Yeah, because the aircraft, there would have to be an absolute calamity for this thing to be. In other words, it would be in and out of that gap so fast that it's at the speed that aircraft travel.
Right, I mean, you're going what 300 to 500 miles an hour?
Yeah, and I'm talking a gap of a few miles, not a few hundred miles.
All right. How about this? A single air traffic controller wound up with the responsibility for 2 hijacked planes simultaneously. Let me say this again. A single air traffic controller wound up with responsibility for 2 hijacked planes simultaneously. Now, I'm going to ask you guys your guess. What do you think those 2 planes were? We have 11. We have what? We have 175, 7793.
I can never remember the numbers, but I think the one that crashed and that allegedly was shot down was one of the planes he was responsible for.
All right. I would have guessed that the 2 ones, well, I have to add
the one that did the U-turn, I think,
okay,
was one of them. Am I right?
Well, I should have prefaced it because it came from the New York air controller, so probably not.
Okay.
I would have thought it would have been the first 2. But this is the statement, and it's, of course, in the Tampa Tribune.
It says spelled right?
Huh?
Is it spelled right?
It is.
What, New York?
No, the Trib.
I'm not reading it right.
Okay.
A socialist fish wrap, piece of garbage. All right, now, the controller had 2 planes. Listen to this.
Okay.
8:51 a.m., New York controller notices 175 transponder change. Ask plane to return to proper code, no response. 8:51 a.m., 8:53 a.m., New York controller tells a second controller there may be a second hijacking. 8:53 is key, because at that time, we already have 11 hitting the tower. It can't be that, all right? 175, he may be accountable for. But 77 is in Ohio. And he's, by this time it's out in Ohio and it's going to do its thing. It can't be in his purview, all right? And 93 is 11 minutes yet. It just took off 11 minutes from Newark. And nothing happened with it for another 22 minutes later. So let me restate that, not to be confusing. 93 was in the air for 11 minutes at that time and did not show any kind of sign of any problem for 22 minutes later. This guy was not handling 2 planes.
See, I don't know, and truthfully, I don't know what kind of range handling capability controllers have. Depending on the areas, it can be pretty broad. I know that. Maybe your buddy, the compressor, takes care of that. Your buddy probably could answer that more eloquently than I could.
Well, they fixed 93's turnaround near Cleveland, so you know it was inside Cleveland. It can't be his. He's got to give it up by that time.
Actually, it can be in Cleveland and Pittsburgh probably in that
There you
whole
go.
area.
So no, I don't think that's that's a lie.
So you don't think that one controller, who may have been their most experienced and most knowledgeable and most skillful, handling two crises at once, you don't buy into that?
No, it's window dressing. I'll tell you what, if that controller was out near Pittsburgh, then he had two flights to deal with, 77 and 93, okay. But they said it was a New York controller. He's got nothing to do with a flight that's out over Cleveland and the other one that's been up in the air for 11 minutes going west from where he is.
And as far as they know at that time, there was no problem with that flight.
No, there was nothing to be suspected.
It'd be interesting to determine what the range of control New York has, but I can't imagine all the way into Ohio or those places.
And of course, as we said, 93 was not even a thought at that time. This is the Grassy Knoll on AM 1350 WDCF, AM 1400 Zephyr Hills. There's a little too non-country. I mean, it's a country rock.
He's a country guy.
He's just keeping the classics alive.
Wherever you are, RG, we miss you.
I love you, RG.
Did you look into
We
his
all do.
eyes and
I have gazed into his eyes.
Yeah, don't tell me about it.
And he fixed our roof at a very reasonable rate, too. He was prompt, came out there,
Well, listen,
saw the problem,
Thatch
fixed
doesn't,
it.
Thatch
Thatch
doesn't cost a lot. All right, the Grassy Knoll, once again, we're rapping on the 9/11 Commission as it deserves to be done because it's telling people what they want them to believe, what they.
But I did
see
some people shaking their head no when these guys were talking in the audience.
Oh, a whole bunch of hecklers
Yeah.
who were saying this isn't adding up.
I mean, as recent as yesterday, when the guy was giving the timeline for what pretty much where you're doing,
Yep.
there was a gal sitting in the audience that just was doing no.
No.
And that's good because it means that not everybody's buying into this thing.
Going on with the MSNBC breakout of what happened on 9/11, another one of the points is the FAA incorrectly told the military that the first plane to crash into the World Trade Center was still in the air after impact. That is false.
That could have been a mistake.
Well, it was up there. It was in the World Trade Center.
Let me state this. We're talking about 11, right?
Yep.
Okay. NORAD informed of the plane striking the World Trade Center at 8:47. They were told.
Okay.
All right?
I see.
Okay. Now, a person believed to be Mohammed Atta, the alleged ringleader of the 19 hijackers who supposedly piloted the plane, I put supposedly, and of course MSNBC believes he was, is heard saying to passengers, "We have some planes. Just stay quiet and you'll be okay. We are returning to the airport."
They did play that audio yesterday.
Yeah, and we're going to believe that that's really their voices.
I was convinced.
Were you?
Not really.
All right, let me ask you guys this.
Sure.
How did they take over Flight 11 and 175? Did they go in and ask if they could fly the plane?
With guns and bombs and apparently some pepper spray.
All right, that's incorrect. There were no guns and bombs involved.
Oh, yes, it's box cutters. Yeah, that's it.
And plastic knives.
And little plastic knives.
All right, should we have a fight in each of the cockpits?
I would expect that these pilots would turn around and cold cock somebody with a box cutter.
So you think we might have a rumble in the cockpit?
I would expect that something would
All
be.
right. Which one are we supposedly told there was a rumble in the cockpit?
That would be the one that crashed in Pennsylvania.
Flight 93.
Yes. Flight
Let's
93.
roll.
Okay, so
Let's roll.
Let me ask you this. If we got a brawl in 93 and the plane starts acting very weirdly because it should, why did Flight 11 and 175 fly like a dart and find its destination without any problems, without wings dipping? You see what I'm saying?
Now, here's one I have for you. Again, at what point are these aircraft in automatic pilot? I would guess as soon as the wheels are up, the pilots are there. But so I'm trying to understand. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. All right. Now the thing about automatic pilot, you're right. It could be right. It's right after the ascent. I don't know how long are you on.
But
when
I
you
bet they
reach
don't
33
waste time with all the technology they have today by poking in some switches. The pilots are
when you
probably
hit cruising
coffee.
altitude, you're an automatic pilot.
You bet.
However, before that, and the thing about Flight 11 was that it was supposed to be flying very lowly. So would you be on automatic pilot if you're not at 33,000 or so?
No, probably not.
So the thing is we supposedly have 4 planes overtaken.
Mm-hmm.
and only one shows any kind of problem, as eyewitnesses would say, that I guess there may have been something going on. We saw the wings dip on 93. And yet 11, 175, and 77 don't symptomize anything with regard to erratic behavior. Everything's just flying along great, while they're having a raging brawl in the cockpit. And you know the cockpits, man, and I tell you, if there's any kind of fight going on in there, switches are getting tripped and things are going on. I mean, you barely can fit 3 guys in that cockpit.
It's pretty tight.
Even
in the most spacious cockpit, it's tight because it's loaded with gear.
And if I recall, the door is locked, so they have to get through the door.
One or two kicker.
Well, there's 2 things. One, there's at a time when it may not be locked, and 2, as our pilot buddy said, these doors are now a 2 kicker. They were once a 1 kicker.
In other words, so it's not much.
Well, do you remember how they upgraded the lock? He said they put a hasp on it.
Just click.
It's what locks your shed against raccoons.
Ah.
I mean, and that's it. And the thing is that what he said was it was etched with the particular flight, like the Craft 767, like this is just for you. What a joke.
Handcrafted.
Yep.
By fools.
All right, so that pretty much does it for MSNBC and what they broke it out on. Now, let's talk about how there was such a bad air response time and how they only could scramble. Now they scrambled from Otis, and why they were called back is anybody's guess.
Where is that at?
It's up in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Where is that, Sir Larry?
Hyannis, Massachusetts.
Okay, out on the Cape. All right. Now they only got planes out of where? Norfolk.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Langley, as a matter of fact.
Huh?
Langley, as a matter of fact.
That's right.
Where we have a
CIA facility.
No, our employer has a.
The marksman comes from there. Oh yes,
yes,
that's
our
right.
employer.
School for the Hard to Believe.
Yeah. Has a remote campus there.
I forgot I was working again. All right, now listen to this. They get him out of Norfolk, okay? This is from John Judge. You can find this on unansweredquestions.net. Judge was a Pentagon brat. His parents had a top security clearance. And here's his statement that they gave in a forum about 2 years ago. The Pentagon spokesperson said, "We had no mechanism to respond," unquote. I would suggest that if you're an investigative reporter that you will find out they have a very extensive mechanism to respond. They don't only respond in the case of a crisis emergency like this, but they respond when any commercial aircraft goes off course, even for a period of a few minutes. They have interceptors that go up to find out what's happening, why it's off course, if communication to the tower is broken, and that these are procedures that don't need any other order from the President. They don't need any order from the Pentagon or anything else. These are standard FAA and NORAD procedures.
That's exactly true, and to bring that point out, if nothing more than a pilot flying alongside, looking at a guy in the window, telling him, waving that there's something wrong here, he can radio that information back to the right. In other words, it might not be a crisis situation, but for whatever reason, stuff isn't working, hand signals, and the information gets passed, and they deal with it. So
that's what happened with Payne Stewart. They went up and they realized that everybody
was asleep.
That's right. And obviously we're already gone. But listen to all the units that are around D.C., okay? Again from Judge. He says, now, is it the case, as they were saying, that they had no mechanism, that they didn't have any scrambling planes available here in D.C.? Absolutely not. Andrews Air Force Base, which is 10 miles away from here, has both the 121st Fighter Squadron of the 113th Fighter Wing, F-16s, multiple planes, the equivalent of 2 squadrons of combat-ready fighter jets at Andrews Air Force Base. They also house the 321st Marine Fighter Attack Squadron, the 49th Marine Air Guard, which defends the airspace over D.C. area, and F-18s that are combat-ready. In addition to that, there is the Anacostia Naval Air Station, which houses the D.C. National Air Guard and D.C. National Guard, and they have combat-ready jets. These jets are in the air now, and after the fact, actively defending the United States. Where were they on September the 11th? Why was nothing put up in the way of this flight? In the case, then, perhaps there was some sort of a stand-down? Perhaps. I have a few indications of that. There is also a 177th Air National Guard based out of Pomona, New Jersey, near Atlantic City, at the Atlantic City Airport. They're about equidistant, actually a little closer to D.C. They could cover both Manhattan and D.C. I mean, you've got air units.
They should be able to find a jet, single jet.
Right in their own backyard, but we're going to call them in from Langley. Now, folks, if you can make sense out of that, you go ahead. You're going to have to deal with the fact that you're being lied to, and it won't be the first time because another one's coming down the chute. Any points for you guys?
No, I'm just thinking about the response time. It is possible to be stationed at a military installation that does not have, like, for example, I was in a reconnaissance operation and we did not have any fighter stuff there. However, there is always somebody in the general vicinity, and the Navy and the Marine Corps, I can tell you, always maintain what they call a Ready 5. And that means that there's somewhere on a base that's fighter equipped, and you mentioned Andrews Air Force Base had a Marine detachment with FA-18s. That means that somewhere on that base somebody is sleeping in a cockpit. And what I mean by that is that the worst duty a pilot, Navy or Marine pilot can draw is the Ready 5, because that means he spends the day sitting in a cockpit reading magazines and sleeping and what have you. But the whole idea is if something comes across, then they've got 5 minutes. They can literally turn that aircraft up and have it launched within 5 minutes. So at Andrews, you can take it to the bank that there were Marine aviators sitting in a cockpit waiting for the call.
And remember, Andrews and both the D.C. Air Guard have... All right, now to more unpleasant matters, but you have to hear the truth, and the truth isn't always easy to digest.
That's right. By the way, listen up,
Boys and girls.
Lady Thought Criminal and her little buddies, Jason and Carrie.
We don't like to name names, but just go ahead and feel free.
Oh, okay.
Why, are they gathered around the old Victrola today?
Yes, they are. The charming Mrs. Thought Criminal is not here tonight, as you've noticed. I see Mrs. Vyzygoth isn't here either.
She's out of Dodge. She's up doing her own investigation.
I'm going to tell you two things. Well, actually about noon. Instead, I'm talking to you from ground zero, and she goes, and you would not believe it, knowing that the two of us had spent so much time in that vicinity. She says it's...
I'm sure that, having never been there, but still I understand...
Yeah, you can imagine the magnitude of that. But I'll tell you another thing also, and I give her credit for having the chutzpah to do this. She gets on a flight. She's up cruising at 33,000. She puts a cell phone on several times between Tampa and JFK.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a long time for her screen to come up on her cell phone at all. When the screen comes up, it says no service available. She was not able to use that cell phone.
Imagine that.
No
kind of a flying Faraday cage, isn't it?
Exactly.
Well, when she dropped down to descend right onto JFK, when they got within some kind of proximity to cell phone tower elevation, it came on and said, let's go. All right, that's all I can tell you. And, let's talk about the Pentagon. Let's isolate the four strike points.
That's the largest office building in the world. I mean, there are buildings that are tall, but in terms of actual floor space and whatnot, that is the largest office building in the world.
The Pentagram.
Yep.
The Pentagram, yeah.
Now, this is on, you guys go check this out. www.defenselink.mil/news/November 2001. Or else just do a simple search on Rumsfeld plus Parade magazine. It was an interview in Parade magazine. It is kept up boastingly on defenselink.mil. Now, tell me about this. This is in an interview, and this is a transcript. This is Rumsfeld. It's a truth that a terrorist can attack any time, any place, using any technique, and it's physically impossible to defend at every time and every place against every conceivable technique. Okay. Here we're talking about plastic knives and using an American Airlines flight filled with our citizens, and now it gets good, and the missile to damage this building, meaning the Pentagon, and similar, inaudible word, whatever that was, that damaged the World Trade Center. Let me say that back. And the missile to damage this building. And it's on a military site. It was in Parade magazine. And so what would you attribute that to, Harry?
Just an oversight. He made a mistake. Freudian slip.
Okay, a slip of the tongue.
Yeah.
That would be...
or maybe not a slip of the tongue.
Well, how about a slip of the tongue that reveals the truth?
Yes.
And he just forgot to say something else. Go look it up, folks. It's there.
It's there.
All right.
Now, why is everybody so amazed that this administration has lied to us? It's been just a tissue of lies from the very beginning.
A tissue of lies?
A tissue of lies.
Well, now remember, we at the Grassy Knoll, for the most part, and if you don't want to subscribe to it, we're going to kick your butt out of here after this hour. But we don't believe in Republicans and Democrats.
Oh, okay.
So this administration, Clinton's administration...
Well, we don't believe that
it doesn't
it's
matter.
a dime's worth of difference.
No, it's all handled, so I'm not
Absolutely.
They just were called upon. It was their time that the handlers wanted them to actually ratchet it up a bit.
Absolutely it was.
So you're going to apologize for that remark?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, the Pentagon. This is from the New York Times. And what I did was, and it's September 14th, I went into the New York Times archives from September 12th through the 20th. I haven't gone any further yet because it takes a while to get through it. But here's what they were saying on September 14th. This is Matthew L. Wald, New York Times. The headline, Pentagon tracked deadly jet, but found no way to stop it. All right, let me just stop here and go back to John Judge again, whose parents were in the Pentagon, and he was a Pentagon brat. Let's see. There's something in here where he addresses all the security they have at the Pentagon. All right, he wanted to lead, this is John Judge, wanted to lead a march on the Pentagon as a protest to say, what would life be like if we could just not have a Pentagon for a day, what we could do with all that money, okay? And he says, this is what we want to do, we're going to march on the Pentagon. And one of the Joint Chiefs comes out and says, well, you can't come up any further than this wall. Well, the wall's at the end of an area that doesn't come up to the steps. And I said, there's been a Supreme Court decision in the 70s that demonstrates, or that says that all demonstrations could come up all the way to the steps. And the Joint Chief said, you can't do that now because we're on Delta Alert. And this is going back to the early 90s, by the way. And I said, what's that? And he said, it's our highest form of alert. And I said, why are you on alert? And he said, we're getting bomb threats every day from the Muslims. And then he said, and we have this constant alert, and you can't come any closer for security reasons. And then he pointed up at the top of the building, the Pentagon, and said, we have radar up there watching to see if any planes are coming into this building. And we have photographic equipment that look at the skies and the videos, and we're going to be taping your demonstration. Now, one of the things you have to understand also is, on Flight 77, supposed crashing into the Pentagon, we got one oblique angle, and we've only seen 5 stills, most of the time dissolved into one another. And I don't see anything except, yeah, there's something in there, but it doesn't look like 767 to me. So they have all these cameras, and that's the only angle we can get at this supposed 77 flying into the Pentagon.
Looks like a tomahawk.
Fortunately, our French friends, who also have satellites.
I love the French.
I love the French,
They're
too.
silly people.
They're so French.
Yeah, they invented the French kiss, amongst other things.
All right, let's go. Go ahead, Thought Criminal. Don't get dissuaded by me.
Well, anyhow, our French buddies had their own satellite over Washington and said, well, wait a minute, look at this. And we have high-resolution photographs from the French.
And what does it show, Thought Criminal?
It shows no airplane.
And what about the 3 symmetrical holes out of the backside of ring E, D, and C?
Oh, it shows that all right, but it doesn't show an airplane.
So we have a 50-foot square hole in the Pentagon before the facade gets undermined somewhat.
Yes.
Okay, now, this plane is traveling about how fast?
500 miles an hour.
And never made a dent in the grass outside.
No,
right?
no.
And now is supposedly dissolved entirely into the Pentagon. No broken wings flipping back out too fast to be absorbed, right? I mean, this thing is a brick outhouse. Can we agree?
And keep in mind that some of the parts are made out of titanium, so that means that there should have been something laying around.
Yeah, they don't go away real easy.
No.
And yet we have a hole through 3 of the rings. Oh, the nose made it. Well, what do we know about the airplane nose?
It's fiberglass.
It's
and you know what's behind it? The radar.
There's nothing in there.
It's hollow.
Exactly.
It's like an eggshell.
So we have a plane that came into the Pentagon parallel to the ground at about 300 to 500 miles an hour. So at what point does it descend, and what does it do to the traffic on I-95 a couple of hundred yards away from it?
Well, apparently it didn't disturb the drivers.
In fact, it didn't disturb them to the point that nobody saw it.
Nobody saw it.
Nobody saw it.
No accidents, no wake, no noise.
That's the beauty. I mean, anybody, and of course it's hard for people to understand what we're talking about, but in the Tampa-St. Petersburg area, when you cross over the Howard Franklin Bridge, which goes between St. Pete and Tampa, you commonly see approaches of aircraft coming into Tampa International Airport, and you don't miss them. You don't miss them.
No.
All right, listen, this is the end of the first hour. We'll be back in the second hour with Thought Criminal, Harry Spencer, and the Vyzygoth. We're talking about 9/11 and the whitewash. Back after the Communist News Network.
Expounding upon truth, justice, and the American way, the Grassy Knoll continues.
What is the American way?
Well, it's
Ask him, he
certainly
did the
changed.
spot. That's it right there.
Because I'm beginning to think that maybe that's not such a good thing.
No, well, listen, we're not anti-American. We're pro-Constitution, pro-American, and the people that are in the government have been handled for over 75 years. They are not people who call America home, though they've made their money, and I'm talking directly about families like the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Mellons, Morgan, Aldrich. Should I stop there?
And, of course, we're opposed to torture.
Why are you so worried about that?
Well, I figure it's going to be practiced on Americans pretty soon after, we come across with the, the Son of Patriot Act.
Okay. Now, yes?
No, I'm just here for the ride.
Okay. The trade towers. Before 9/11, had any steel, glass, and concrete skyscraper burned to the ground?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I still think it was aluminum in that building.
Don't confuse the argument now with that. You're not serious about that.
I am very
No,
serious.
you're not.
Because I think people took shortcuts. Hey, it's just an opinion.
All right, a bad one at that. But was there ever a fire that raged in a steel, glass, and concrete skyscraper?
Yes, there have been.
All right.
But none of
They
them
burned
have
themselves
collapsed.
out, and the buildings are still there.
All right, and what's the one that's most notable? It is the Meridian Plaza fire in Philadelphia in 1991.
Yes.
And let me recount
Is
quickly.
that when Phil was burning everything down, or the mayor there?
No, that was another incident.
Okay.
That was
drop a bomb on a house.
City of Brotherly Love.
The City of Brotherly Love.
That was called gentrification.
What was his name? Mayor Ruda,
I don't know.
Rizzo.
Rizzo, yeah.
Yeah.
I almost said Phil Rizzuto.
Of the money store.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The beloved Yankee play-by-play man. All right, now, the overview of the fire at the 38-story Meridian Bank Building, also known as 1 Meridian Plaza. It happened on February 23rd, 1991. It burnt for more than 19 hours. The fire caused 3 firefighter fatalities and injuries to 24 firefighters. 12 alarms brought 51 engine companies, 15 ladder companies, 11 specialized units, and over 300 fighters to the scene. But the problem was, this was a true raging inferno, and because of that, they couldn't stay next to the fire. They had to retreat. They're telling us in the World Trade Center it went to 1,000 or 2,000 degrees. If that were the case, and it's not, because as you could see by the black smoke, it was an ill-nourished fire, those firefighters would never have gotten as close as they were. And another New York Times article, we have quotes. The voices captured on a tape of fire department radio transmissions betray no fear. The words are a matter of fact. 2 hose lines are needed, Chief Oreo Palmer said from an upper floor of the badly damaged South Tower at the World Trade Center. Lieutenant Joseph G. Levy is heard responding, Oreo, we're on 78. That's the floor, right? But we're in the B stairway trapped in here. We got to put some fire out to get to you. They don't sound frazzled, do they?
No.
No. Also, we're going to knock down some fire here in the B stair, Lieutenant Levy is heard telling one of the firefighters. We'll meet up with you. You get over to the A stair and help out Chief Palmer. The time was 9:56. The firefighters had just arrived at a place where 54 minutes earlier many people had been waiting for elevators when the second plane came crashing through the building. Now Chief Palmer and Ladder 15 were surrounded by the wounded whom they hoped to evacuate. These are not people that are near a raging inferno and all freaked out. They're putting out some fire. They got under control. Elevators are working. And yet in the Meridian Plaza fire that was indeed a raging inferno, the firefighters had to withdraw because they couldn't stay next to the fire. The fatalities, the firefighters that were lost, were due to disorientation from smoke. And let me get a structural analysis of what happened. Okay, this is the deal after a 19-hour raging inferno in the Meridian Plaza building. Prior to deciding to evacuate the building, firefighters noticed significant structural displacement occurring in the stair enclosures. A command officer indicated that cracks large enough to place a man's fist through developed at one point. One of the granite exterior wall panels on the east stair enclosure was dislodged by the thermal expansion of the steel framing behind it. After the fire, there was evident significant structural damage to horizontal steel members and floor sections on most of the fire-damaged floors. Beams and girders sagged and twisted, some as much as 3 feet. under severe fire exposures and fissures developed in the reinforced concrete assemblies in many places. Despite the extraordinary exposure, the columns continued to support their loads without obvious damage. And that building stood after that raging fire of 19 hours. Nothing compared to what happened in the World Trade Center, which was not a raging inferno for less than 1 hour. So, I mean, obviously we got a situation here. If the Meridian Plaza did not get dropped, then why did the Trade Center do so? Now, we all believe that there was evidence that there were detonations placed in those towers because they looked like a controlled demo, because they were a controlled demo. Now, go ahead, thought criminal.
Well, I recall that the seismographs, and I believe it was NYU.
Columbia has
Columbia.
Lamont. Yes, I'm familiar with that.
They picked up
two spikes.
Two spikes just beforehand.
Right.
Well, obviously something happened underground, and then the Trade Center falls.
Well, the other thing is that might explain why they had such hot molten pools of liquid long after the towers fell. What kind of energy would have created that if they weren't basically blasted off their foundation to begin with and detonations placed to go ahead and drop it? Now, I want to tell people this. You go to this website, letsroll911.org. Letsroll911.org. There is a loop of about maybe 40 seconds of firemen from the NYFD speaking about their experience. And there's no two ways about these guys that they're New York guys, you know what I'm saying? It goes on and on, but here's the nexus of what was said between two of them. I'll call one A and one B. A says this, and he makes a hand sign as if you were holding your hand level and dropping it down, okay? He says, floor by floor, they started popping out. The other guy says, it was as if they had detonated it. It was as if they were planning to take down the building. Boom, 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 boom. And I tell you what, you go and see that for yourself, because he's right. They were planning, and there was demolitions, and they were taken down just that way. The pancaking situation, listen, we talked about this before. 47 interior columns, bigger as they go down to carry the load. So if you got problems upstairs and things break off, it's lighter load, all right?
Right.
Somewhere over 240 exterior columns. What are the chances that on how many floors in the trade towers, like 130, that on every floor, on every one of those 47 interiors and 240 exteriors, that every fastening device on all those columns broke the same way 130 stories down? How can that be? Give me a break. And if you look at those photographs, ladies and gentlemen, then tell me why you saw debris extruded from that building off, like 30 yards away from it. If it burnt, it should crumble inside, just like any building you've ever seen. Have you ever seen any building burn where stuff was blown out?
Hold up the photographs for our viewing audience.
What's that?
Hold up the photographs for our viewing audience.
So, I mean, you've got the tapes from them, from another New York Times article in January of 2002 by Kevin Flynn and Jim Dwyer. You've got very, very calm fire department personnel saying we've got some fire to knock down. We're here at the site, no big deal. And as we said before, go ahead.
There's something wrong with that whole thing.
I mean, come on.
Go to the website, 911letsroll.org.
Right, and go
look
and watch
at
that.
the pictures.
Yes, and they're there without a doubt.
And judge for yourself.
One other thing. Oh, yeah, this is great. We'll get into this a little bit later. We'll wait for that. But
well, we got some dead air.
Hi,
Jason and Carrie, and thank you for the homemade bread.
That'll be enough of that.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out how the president saw the first plane hit the tower while he's in a school with no TV set on.
Break for putting. All right, here we go. This is on the WhiteHouse.gov website. Go to it, /news/releases. Go check it out, or do a Google on President Bush and townhouse meeting. This is what he said in Orlando, Florida. All right? Let me cut to the quick. He's answering a question from a young child by the name of Jordan. He said, I was in Florida, and my chief of staff, Andy Card, I was in a classroom talking about a reading program that works. I was sitting outside the classroom waiting to go in. All right, let me state this again. I was sitting outside the classroom waiting to go in, and I saw an airplane hit the tower. The TV was obviously on. I guess so, Shrub.
No TV in that hallway.
And I used to fly myself, and I said, well, there's one terrible pilot. I said, it must have been a horrible accident. And I was sitting in the classroom, and Andy Card, my chief of staff, who was sitting over here, walked in and said, a second plane has hit the tower. America is under attack. And our president, and again, I'm not making fun of Bush, but if I hear that, I'm getting my butt out of that school and getting down to business. And he sits there and reads for another 20 minutes.
Well, I heard the explanation from the commission yesterday.
Okay, and they said,
they said that he didn't want to alarm the students and whatnot.
Okay, I mean, it doesn't matter that we're being attacked and the chief executive is sitting there talking about, yeah, okay.
I mean, Roosevelt did it during Pearl Harbor. I mean, he probably had a sip of wine while the thing was going on.
Well, it was Sunday.
All right, I can see. All right, did you have a critical comment to make?
No, I have no critical comment to make.
All right, then why would I hit you?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's the point.
Just on general principles.
Yeah, thank you, TC. All right, now, not only did Shrub one time say that he heard or he saw the first plane hit, but he does it again in another town meeting, this time in California, at the Ontario Convention Center in January 5, 2002. And he does it again. He says, anyway, I'm sitting there, and my chief of staff, well, first of all, when we walked into the classroom, I had seen this plane fly into the first building. There was a TV set on. And, I thought it was a pilot error, and I was amazed that anybody could make such a terrible mistake. So twice he says he saw the first one.
Here's the crux of the biscuit.
Go.
And that is that the first plane hitting the tower was not carried on live television.
It has been captured, but it wasn't on live television.
Wasn't. So when he saw it happen, how did he see it happen?
Well, what happens if there was something?
Military feed,
Unless he's on a CIA feed.
There you go. All right. I have no problem with that. Okay.
After all, we had had 5 people on the top of the van.
I bet if you did your timeline, the time that the presidential aide told him that the second tower had been hit, by that time the networks had already, in other words, hadn't been able to. Exactly.
Right. Also, as far as foreknowledge goes, and we won't go in deeply into this, but you know the old deal. Between September 6th and 7th, the Chicago Board Options Exchange saw purchases of 4,744 put options on United Airlines, okay? But only 396 call options. Put options is gambling that they're going to drop, okay? On September 10th, 4,516 put options on American Airlines were bought on the Chicago Exchange. Funny that it was just those two.
And who bought them?
Well, I'll tell you what.
I don't think we can know that under banking secrecy laws, can we?
I'm not sure about that.
Under the Patriot Act, we could sure go in there and find out. Why don't we do that?
What happened, I think, a bit of that was frozen, and those people never did get it. So I don't know that their names are available to us, although they definitely...
Maybe we should ask Rumsfeld and Ashcroft to go in there and use that newfound power to reveal those sources to us.
Well, just understand this, that CIA executive director at that one time, Buzzy Cronenberg, managed the firm that handled the put options.
Buzzy?
Buzzy.
You're joking. His first name was Buzzy?
No, his first name wasn't Buzzy. It's a nickname. I don't know what... No, I don't know, but Buzzy's his nickname. Listen,
okay.
I knew a Buzzy Shiola. You would not laugh at him.
All right.
Cliffside Park, you know what I'm saying? They bowl overhand in the streets. All right. Another thing, Nova had put out why the towers fell. Remember when you did this a while ago, Harry? And you got to watch this because there's all kinds of contradictions in this thing. And one of the people who were in the building at the time, Brian Clark, said, I think those buildings could go over. And I said, there's no way. I said, those are steel structures. And I didn't finish the sentence, okay? Now also, the narrator said, controlling the fire was almost hopeless. It was too high up and spread over too big an area. Had firemen ever reached the blaze, the equipment they carried would have made little difference. We just heard the cell phone tapes where they reached the area. All right, so what's that about? Moving right along. We did this in depth also. If you ever go back to 9/11 parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 with Eric Heffschmidt, there's this much more in depth. We're doing this for the most part because a lot of people in this area did not hear it locally because at that time we were underground. And if we keep doing this, we're probably going back underground, either broadcasting or...
Right. Or 6 feet under.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Also, Brian Clark had said this about descending the staircases. He said drywall had blown off the wall and was lying propped up against the railings here. And we had to move it, shovel it aside. You could see through the wall and the cracks and see flames just licking up. Not a roaring inferno. Hello, not a roaring inferno. Just quiet flames licking up and smoke sort of eking through the wall. This is your raging inferno.
That's because most of the fuel was expended on the impact. So there's nothing left. And the bottom line is that we know what paper I mean, how hot can paper and carpet
And wood.
And wood get?
Right.
You know, certainly not how to melt steel.
I do not know if this is still on the website, but this came from
pressboard,
PBS
yes.
website. It was pbs.org. You're going to have to do a search on why the towers fell. Read it for yourself. And, we don't have a lot of time left, but let's talk about that. Kerosene is not your basic fuel of choice if you want to start a raging inferno, is
Probably not.
it? No.
No.
Also,
most people, and you make a good point there, most people think jet fuel is some sort of a super secret rocket. It's refined much better than your average kerosene, but it's certainly not as volatile as gasoline is, for example.
And would you not agree that if you could make an analogy, that kerosene to a raging inferno is like the lighter fluid you use on charcoal briquettes?
I would say that the lighter fluid is probably more
intensified,
volatile.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Matter of fact, you can take a burning match and toss it into a container of kerosene, and the match will go out.
Also, this is from a Danish website, and I think people have to understand this. And I think I'm going to go ahead and purchase this video because I've got to see it for myself. And his contention. This gentleman from Denmark, because he said what we've seen has been altered video, most of the time without audio. And I'm paging through.
Yeah, because those people running away from the crash site when
There
the
you
building
go.
is collapsing, there's no audio on that.
Right, and the reason he gives a reason for this, and I'm trying to find a
I
sports
think it's
fan.
because the mic was unplugged.
All right, his contention is this, and I'm going to tell you where to go to look at this because I'm not going to worry about going through all this, and that is bombinsidewtc.dk. Go look for yourself. All right, bombinsidewtc.dk. His contention is that what we've seen is that they show a cut of the towers falling. Then they show a cut of this plume of smoke chasing people down the street, never with audio. The point being is that those people in the street were running because the bombs went off in the bottom of it, and they were getting the butt out of there, and the towers had yet to fall. But what we see is tower falling, smoke plume going down the street, and people doing a yada yada down there. So, in other words, we have never seen an unadulterated...
And to be quite honest with you, from the distance that you see these people that are running, with the building collapsing vertically as it did, why bother running? Because they were safe enough distance away. In other words, if you look where they're standing and you see the World Trade Center several blocks behind them coming vertically down, why not just stand there and just watch it?
So they heard explosions.
They're running from something.
That's right. Exactly.
What was that website again?
bombinsidewtc.dk. He is selling video out of Denmark. And like I said, I really do want to take a look at this because I got to see it for myself. But he said the video clips were mostly edited so that they showed an early begun video fraction of the tower collapse. The video clip should also have included the seconds just before the towers began to fall. He said the censorship was made to prevent a, quote, sound exposure, unquote, from the original bombs being detonated in the seconds prior to the start of the collapse of the WTC rooftop. So what we saw was not a chronologically correct episode. At some other point, we will say that we'll tell you why this might have been done. But let's just gloss over it. In fact, we don't really have any time left. But the thing is this. Terror is very useful to getting control over people. And what's happening now in America is not about keeping us safe from terror. It's about control. Because in the coming one world government, we will have no peace, a.k.a. 1984 by George Orwell. Last comment, you got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Terrorism. A government that seeks to rule by intimidation.